talked about the four phases of this is how I positioned the Russell Wilson stuff last week. The four phases of this of discontent, right? Mm-hmm. Number one, go on a high-profile national TV radio show and tell everybody you're not happy. Throw teammates under the bus, basically, right?
Yep.
Phase number two, do nothing about it over the course of the next week while everybody's planting the story for you. Never like, man, I came out wrong, didn't mean that way. I love my team. None of that. He just let us fan the flames. The third phase of Russ Wilson's discontent was to have his agent come out and say, now, listen, really, we like Seattle. We want to play with, but in the event that we don't want to play with Seattle, we want to go to these four teams. Phase number four, now we got the absolute identification of the team that he covets the most and the reasons why. That was the Chicago Bears. We talked about that. And now we get to phase number five, which is, I mean, this is where the bridge appears to be burning wildly with no water in sight. Now it looks as if Seattle has taken the first four phases in. Mm-hmm. All right, phase one, all right, that was odd. Phase two, it's getting ugly. Phase three, whoa. Specific teams, phase four, we got a problem. They have weighed in. And phase five now, apparently, they are not only accepting calls, they are reaching out to teams to gauge the interest and what it would take to acquire Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot, man.
Woo!
And Russell Wilson, with his no trade clause, can control the destinations here. We know that it's the Bears and the Saints and the Raiders, but the Raiders isn't going to happen. We heard Mike Mayock talk about Derek Carr. Maybe that was just posturing. Hopefully, well, we'll send you Derek Carr. You give us Russell Wilson. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
He's great.
All right. And so there's limited options for the Seahawks. There's also limited salary cap room that they have to work with. And that's really the biggest thing. And I know it's becoming louder and more real that Russell Wilson's not going to be a Seahawk in 2021. But when I look at that cap hit, it's $39 million if they trade him before June 1, which they have to do because it just doesn't make sense to do it after June 1. People have already gone through free agency. The draft has already happened.
Yep.
It's just going to be less urgent for a team, say, like the Saints, who only have Taysom Hill under contract right now. He played okay, but he's not your answer. Jameis Winston's a free agent. If the Saints are desperate right now, they're not waiting until June 1st to figure out whether or not Russell Wilson's going to be their quarterback or not. But that $39 million cap hit,
it's a big number.
That's a big number if you try to move Russell Wilson, even if he doesn't want to be there and he's unhappy for at least another year.
Yeah, I mean, this came from the McAfee show, and this is about an hour or so it starts to really gain some real palpable traction. And there was a tweet, this one, and it says, Seattle's made calls to other teams about trading for Russell Wilson. Diana Rossini told the Pat McAfee show, quote, he's not happy in Seattle. We know her work well. She's had a bit of an elevation there at the network. She was one of the team's reporters during Super Bowl. Like, she's doing a really good job. She's very piped in. And, I mean, listen, every journalist, well, not every journalist, most journalists are married to the principles of journalism, though there are a few out there who sensationalize some stuff to get clicks. She is certainly not one, and that's the small minority. She is not one of them. So when she goes on a show and tells McAfee what I just read, we know that this is real. I don't know. Now I'm just trying to read the leaves. It doesn't seem like it's quite as far down the road, and at least in terms of what Russell Wilson's thinking, how he feels about Seattle or doesn't feel anymore. Quite like Deshaun Watson. Like Deshaun Watson, there's no way he's going back.
Yeah.
He's not making a U-turn. We're not going to wake up I'd be stunned. We're not going to wake up tomorrow or next week or next month with this huge story, this monster, tweet where the football universe spins in a different direction. Deshaun Watson, changes his mind. He's ready to, no, Deshaun Watson's out. He is done mentally. He is done with the Texans. I don't know if Russell Wilson's there, but it's going to be interesting to see now how he feels about the fact that Seattle, if this report's true, and we have no reason for it not to be, to believe, Diana Rossini, that if they are now actively engaging others in that conversation, does he take that as a slight? It's one thing for Russell Wilson to intimate he's not happy, but now when the other end starts to actively engage people, Does that rub his ego the wrong way?
Yeah.
It could. I don't know.
Don't they have to cover their rears?
Yes.
To be honest, I mean,
Yes.
it is what it is.
They do.
Look, this is a conflict of Russell Wilson's creation. We can maybe blame tactically the Seattle Seahawks for how they've run their organization, giving a lot of power to Pete Carroll and no one to answer to, at least according to reports, to his sons as well. And it just feels like it's his way or no way. And so maybe he just managed it wrong. Like his leadership style was wrong, even though everything that we've heard speaks to the contrary of that.
Yep.
When it comes to Pete Carroll. But this is Russell Wilson wanting too much control over his story and maybe wanting to accelerate it. And there are ways for this to have been fixed with him unless he just really hates Seattle and doesn't want to be there anymore. And the weather's horrible out here. The fan base, which is you can't even say that. The fan base is awesome.
Great fans.
I mean?
Great fans. Great stadium, great winning organization. I mean, what do you want?
Right. Just unless he wants to be on a bigger stage.
That's fine.
He
That's
wants
okay.
to be somewhere on the East Coast where he's going to get primetime games all the time, and people are going to see him, even though we see him all the time anyway.
I don't know, man. I've watched Seattle on Sunday night a lot.
I agree.
Which is a good thing.
I'm trying to understand.
He's not happy. You're overthinking it. He's not happy.
But why?
That we don't know. And you know what, Teak, at this point, I don't think it really matters.
Well,
unless
it
you
does matter.
think it's a bridge to repair.
Which
I guess is why. Okay.
Yes, that's why I'm saying this. That's why I'm saying this.
Gotcha.
Because if it's because, you know what, we just don't have good enough talent around me, have that conversation privately. It's
Yep.
or at least under the radar. And so when it's fixed, you can then claim credit for helping fix it, right? As opposed to making it so pronounced that there is a mental divide and perceptual divide that eventually becomes real. I mean, it's real now, right?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Right?
Game's on.
It's not like, I'm thinking I'm unhappy and maybe I, have hey, Pete, let's have a conversation. It's out
on.
there. It's out there now.
Yep. And it's been out there for 3 weeks.
That's right.
February 9th
and it's
was when he went on Dan Patrick, Teak.
And it's
February 9th.
It's all on Russell Wilson, right? There's ways that they can help do what Russell Wilson wants to do, which is bring in better talent. You got to restructure some guys. Russell Wilson might have to restructure his contract. Jamal Adams, you give him an extension. Tyler Lockett, you give some of these guys extensions. You're going to create a ton of salary cap space in 2021. Now, maybe it's like swiping your credit card. Right?
Yeah.
You got to push the payment down the line.
Yeah.
But by 2022 or 23, when they come due, the salary cap should be well over $200 million, right? So it should correct itself, assuming we all get back into live events and we can go to games and merchandising and the economy comes back in a sense. But you gotta just assume that's going to happen. I think it's worth it to fix what Russell Wilson wants to be fixed. Just not do it so publicly and divisively.
It's too late. That's why it's too late for that. I'll tell you what. Seattle should trade Russell Wilson.
But it's not too late. But you can't trade him.
But I'll tell you why.
You can't do it. You can't trade him and incur a $39 million hit.
You can if you get back 4 first-round picks and you're paying him peanuts on the rookie contract. You can, and you take it on the chin for a year and you reset. There's ways to do it. Trust me, there's ways to do it.
And then do what at quarterback?
Who knows? I mean, I don't have that answer. I mean,
with a 70-year-old coach and a team that's actually pretty decent. They're not like a bottom 12. They're not the Jets that need to rebuild at every position.
Definitely not.
Right? So you're going to get back nobody. You're going to have a quarterback come back. And if you do have a quarterback come back, he's got to be somewhat viable, say Derek Carr, but his cap hit to you will be 20-something million. So all of a sudden you got really almost $60 million on your cap, which is 25% of your cap to the quarterback. But it doesn't make any – you can't do it, man.
But you know what? They have put themselves in a really bad spot. When they made – you mentioned the Jets. When they made that trade with the Jets for Jamal Adams, right? Now, you mentioned the extension. There's ways to do that and to spread things out over the years, and then eventually you're going to have to swipe the card. And you're right, but they're going to have to pay him. But the real issue is that they parted with 2 first-round picks. Yeah. Now, I know they're only picking 23rd this year. If Russell Wilson – or they would have been – if Russell Wilson is back there next year, and at this point I'm starting to think he's not. But if he is, let's assume for a moment it's somehow patched up or it's untenable based on the money, the $39 million hit.
Yeah.
And you might be right, although we all know where there's a will, there's a way.
Of course.
We know. Okay. So if Seattle's truly motivated to move him, they can obviously find loopholes and dance around that $39 million. But they can also recover not only the 2 first-round picks they gave up for Adams, but 1, 2, maybe even 3 more spread out over years. You see, why I think they now have to trade him, all right? If he was so public in his disdain, I don't know that I can think of a more accurate word, his certainly lack of faith for a few words, but his disdain or his lack of trust for how they're building this, why would we think, let's inject common sense, even if they placate him with everything and it shuts him up for a year, why are we to think that in a year or two, Russell Wilson's not going to pop off again? And at that point, he's not 32, he's 34, and now you command less.
Yeah.
The time to trade him is now.
Yeah, but I just can't get past the cap hit.
All right, well, you're going to have to, because they're going to have to.
It's not going to happen.
So wait, you don't think he's going to be traded?
I don't. I do not think Russell Wilson is going to be traded.
Why are they calling teams?
I think he's going to be a Seahawk because they're trying to figure out what the value is here, and if Russell pulls a Deshaun Watson, which, let's be clear, he has not done. He hasn't said, I hate it here. I am not going to play here. He hasn't said that.
Hasn't said that.
And if he does, then they better have a contingency. They can't just. They're not going to be the Houston Texans. So I think for the last few weeks, we've been looking at the Houston Texans and saying the Houston Texans are incompetent. The Houston Texans have their head buried in the sand like an ostrich.
Yes, and yes.
They're not acknowledging the fact that their quarterback hates them like, vehemently and doesn't want to be there next year. But we're just going to ignore it because we know better. We know how to build championship caliber teams. We were did it with the New England Patriots.
Yes.
Not New England in Houston. Just saying, right? And so
we will convert him.
And by the way, you don't have that coach either. So coaches. So forget Bill Belichick, but all the assistants that have been there as well.
Yep.
And so they're ignoring the situation. But all of a sudden, we're taking that Houston situation and applying it to other like
situations.
Situations.
Yeah,
I don't want to keep using situations. But,
loosely applying it.
But so I don't think that Seattle is going that same route. I think Seattle is smart. They're a well-run organization, and they have been for decades now. And so the idea is we want Russell. Russell is our guy. We do not want to play the 2021 season or beyond with anyone else at quarterback other than Russell Wilson. However, we are not the Houston Texans. We are not sticking our head in the sand. We're gonna put our heads above the clouds and come up with a contingency plan should he pull a Deshaun Watson. But that hasn't happened yet. So I reiterate, I don't think that Russell Wilson is going to be elsewhere in 2021. I think the challenge now for Seattle and the Seahawks, this organization, the front office, Jody Allen is and Snyder and Pete Carroll is we have to find a way to get him back in the fold, stop talking about how unhappy you are, and maybe come to some consensus on how we're going to fix this thing. That's their best play. Trading him is not their best play because it doesn't help them for a team that, if they get some pieces right, could be viable in the postseason, in 2021 and beyond.
And beyond, for sure. I mean, maybe there's a middle sense. If you don't believe that they have to trade him, okay? And as you just chronicled, there's a lot of reasons why people would not latch on to that thought, all right? But that's vastly different from saying that they should trade him. And I believe that they should trade him.
But why?
Because I believe that when you're listen, he has been, I said all week, he's basically this generation's Jeter in terms of what's packaged and what's crafted, his story, his narrative. It is smooth. It is without interruption. It is without bump, right? It is just so perfect, right? At least in terms of what's out there. Obviously, nobody's perfect. When he goes off the way he did with Dan Patrick, that to me signals that it is now a cavalier mindset and a disregard for organization that has crept into his game, into his plan, into his motives.
Yeah, I read it different.
Oh, no, I got you.
Yeah.
I know you do. But I'm saying if I'm brought in Seattle, I cannot run the risk of doing everything it would take to patch it up now, and then in a year or two holes popping up and the dam busted again, which is what I think would happen. Yeah. I believe that I can't prove this. I'm just telling you what I think. I feel it is my opinion that he is done with Seattle.
Yeah.
And because of that, I believe Seattle needs to be done with him.
I can hear what you're saying, but I think Russell Wilson is and needs to be better than that. Russell Wilson, as you said, he's football's Jeter. He does all the right things, and he says all the right things.
It is part.
It is part and parcel of his brand.
He was.
That's who he is. But
once he changed, you've got to change.
But hold on. That's who he is, and he knows that's who he is. Him being this bombastic and braggadocious and I'm the greatest of all time, that is not good for him, and it won't be good for him because he won't be received in another locker room with the same kind of
reverence?
Yeah, deference maybe for some of his quirks, right? Yeah, he in Seattle because he's a champion and they know him and they know he's a baller. It works, but he's a quirky dude, and he goes somewhere else and he's walking in with those quirks and then simultaneously saying, "I'm the greatest. I know I'm good. I know I can do whatever. Let me throw the ball 60 times. I can be like Big Ben, Tom Brady. I want to catch." It's not going to be received well. Russell Wilson's got to do better for himself and for his career because he's walking down a dangerous path and he's wishing for things that might be outside of his grasp. And if he goes to that greener pasture and that lawn dies quick, our historical perception of Russell Wilson is going to change significantly. He's talking about his legacy. I want control of my legacy. He's about to damage it in a way that might be irreparable. So he's just got to be careful. That's all I'm saying.
Unless he goes somewhere and wins. I mean, and he's got that confidence. I hear you. As much as we kind of disagree on what Seattle should do, you make a lot of salient points. I understand what you mean. I just think it's been further complicated because of his what he's injected into the public sphere. Any way you cut it, this is not an enviable position to be in for Seattle with your 32-year-old franchise quarterback who's absolutely at the worst in the middle of his prime, who just signed the contract. You got problems. So you've got to deal with this. You've got cap issues, as you pointed out. You've got perceptual PR issues. This is problematic. What do you think? Get us on Twitter at Tiki and Tierney, 1-855-212-4227. If you're Seattle, should you try to move them as proactive as they appear right now? Is that the right course of action? If you think that's the case, what's the best fit? Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.